The streets of Paris were cloaked in a melancholic haze, a city both weary and defiant under the weight of the Great War. Amid the turmoil, René Fournier's workshop stood as an island of invention and solitude, tucked away in the narrow, cobbled alleys of Montmartre. The warm glow of gaslight seeped through the grimy windows, casting flickering shadows of a man bent over his latest creation. René's dreams of unmanned flight, of machines that could soar free of human hands, seemed almost absurd against the backdrop of a world tearing itself apart. Yet the chaos only sharpened his resolve. René was a wiry figure, his frame hunched from hours of meticulous labor, his fingers, calloused and perpetually stained with oil, danced across a lattice of wires and gears, coaxing life into his fragile contraptions. The air was filled with the ticking of mechanical hearts, punctuated by the occasional hiss of steam or the sharp crackle of soldering. His notebooks, stuffed with sketches and scribbled equations, lay scattered across every available surface. The margins were filled with fragments of poetry, musings on the nature of freedom and flight, and questions that only the skies could answer. Héloïse Moreau, his childhood friend, would often interrupt his reverie. Her presence was a welcome contrast to the workshop's chaos, a beacon of practicality and quiet concern. She would arrive in her nurse's uniform, the hem still smudged with the grime of hospital wards. Her visits were filled with gentle admonishments as she brewed strong, bitter coffee to keep him from collapsing. "René," she said one evening, leaning against the workbench, "you've barely eaten today. What good are your machines if you fall apart before they even take flight?" He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his eyes. "They'll outlive me, Héloïse." That's the point. Despite her skepticism, Héloïse never truly discouraged him. She understood that René's machines were more than invention. They were his rebellion against a world consumed by destruction. She watched him with a mixture of admiration and exasperation, her heart caught between worry for his health and awe at his vision. But lately, something unsettled her. On her way to René's workshop, she had noticed a figure lingering in the shadows. The stranger was tall and cloaked, their presence as unsettling as it was persistent. They never approached, yet their gaze felt heavy, even from a distance. Héloïse mentioned it to René, but he dismissed her concerns too, consumed by his work to give much thought to a potential threat. One night, however, the stranger's intentions became harder to ignore. René, lost in the rhythm of his tinkering, didn't hear the faint creak of floorboards near the workshop's entrance. It was only when a cold draft swept through the room that he looked up, his heart skipping a beat. The figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the street lamp. "Who are you?" René demanded, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his chest. The figure stepped forward, revealing a man with sharp, angular features and piercing blue eyes. His coat was finely tailored, a stark contrast to the grime and soot of the workshop. He carried himself with an air of authority, yet there was something elusive, almost spectral, about him. "I am Anton Lemaire," the stranger said, his voice smooth and deliberate. "Your work has not gone unnoticed, Monsieur Fournier." René exchanged a glance with Héloïse, who had instinctively stepped closer to him. "And what work would that be?" René asked, feigning ignorance. "The work that will change the nature of this war," Anton replied, his lips curling into a faint smile. "Or end it altogether." The cryptic remark sent a shiver down Héloïse's spine. René's machines had always been a testament to his idealism. But now they seemed to carry a weight he hadn't anticipated. Anton reached into his coat and produced a blueprint, René's blueprint. It was a design he had only recently begun, one he had not shared with anyone. "I don't know how you obtained this," René said, his voice trembling with restrained anger. "But these machines are not weapons." Anton's smile deepened, his eyes glinting with something between amusement and menace. "Machines, Monsieur Fournier, are neither good nor evil. It is men who decide their purpose. And in times like these, purpose is everything." With that, Anton turned on his heel and disappeared into the night, leaving René and Erise standing in stunned silence. The workshop, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground. Erise placed a hand on René's shoulder, her touch grounding him as he stared at the blueprint in his hands. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. René's jaw tightened, his resolve hardening. "I will finish what I started, but not for them, not for the war." Outside, the night pressed heavy against the windows, as if the world itself conspired to keep them in the shadows. Yet, within the workshop, a quiet defiance burned brighter than ever. René knew that his machines could be more than tools of destruction. They could be a symbol of hope, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to rise above the ashes. But as the gears turned and the clock ticked on, one question lingered. Would his creations be enough to outpace the darkness that sought to claim them?